There are kind of two ways to look at the course, I guess. That there's a compendium of knowledge that physicians need to have, right? And
Yeah.
so you can think of learning medicine as kind of a trade. And, there are the necessary skills and so on that you pick up for that trade. And you will get a lot of that from the course, but I just wanted to point out that there is kind of another side of things too, and that is brought about by the artificial intelligence success with protein folding. You probably know about AlphaFold. That in 2020, there was a rather spectacular success in machines understanding something that human beings basically can't understand. In other words, if you try as hard as you can to
Yeah.
understand how proteins fold, it's impossible for the human brain to understand that.
Yeah.
So this is something more complicated than any of the big problems that the human race has right now. If you think of climate emergency, nuclear war, COVID-19, male aggression, colonialism, and systemic racism, each of them is less complicated than protein folding. And so you can imagine that if you have stuff to measure, so you can tell whether you're being successful, and human cooperation, that AI, now having solved protein folding, could solve these other things or help us solve them. And to some extent, all six of those things look like things that humanity is not going to solve itself. I mean, every day there seems to be more and more
Yeah.
evidence that we're not solving these problems on our own. So what does that do to your thought processes? It's kind of reimagining scale of what life of the future could be, and thinking of it in a scale that most people never think that big. Like when you think, what could you accomplish in your research? How many people could that impact? A thing that you may hear is that you could like do something or create a company or something that will positively impact 1 billion people. I say, wow, but you realize that's only a small fraction of what you actually could do, right?
Yeah.
There are things you could do that could impact 8 billion people, everybody on Earth, and probably beyond that. So thinking about scale further, you can think about Kardashev type 1 civilization. We're not there yet, but presumably someday we will be there, where you don't have to worry about global warming because you can actually moderate the amount of radiation that the Earth receives and use the extra radiation to store it and do cool things with it, right?
Yeah.
But no one's thinking about this as a real trajectory, something that human beings are actually going to do, but it is quite likely that we will do that. And so what is this thing made of? How is it maintained? How do you maintain its, security? And then if you think that's a big idea, then Kardashev type 2 civilizations, where you use all the energy from a star, all the energy from the sun, and then sort of collect that, right? So how's it going to work? How can you get enough material, whatever this is made of, to create something that large, and once created, how can you keep it secure and so on.
Yeah.
So I just wanted you to be aware that we are going to talk about these really big ideas. So not only is the course speculative in that a lot of the ideas we're talking about are things that likely will exist but don't exist yet, but it also sees no upper bound in, what is possible, because I don't think there really is any upper bound. There's an upper bound in what a lot of people are kind of able to think of as
Yeah.
being possible, right?
Yeah.
But so it's a course unlike any other you've ever taken. So in other words, any paper you've written before would not be suitable for this course. Any presentation you've given before would not be suitable for this course. Why is that? Well, first of all, because of the speculative nature of the subjects, but secondly, about the exponential change, the Moore's law kind of facet of the course. So anyway, getting back to your interest in taking the course, I want to make sure that you understand this is not just a course about technology and medicine. That would be a pretty mundane course. This
Yeah.
has the word future in it, which kind of changes everything, right? But a course about technology and medicine, you could do your final project on like the pacemaker, the history and the future of the pacemaker. That's really not suitable for this
Yeah.
course. There has to be that sense of the future being a much faster and faster trajectory than the past, and that a linear assumption of where the future is going is badly wrong, that the future is not linear. The future is an exponential upward sweep like you can't imagine, you know? Yeah. So that flavor has to be there in your final paper, your final presentation. The two of those have to be in the same subject, but otherwise it can be on anything that interests you, that somehow fits with this idea of the exponential future and some of its risks. The risks are, existential risks, like things could wipe out the whole human race, but also the possibility of, sort of post-scarcity utopia beyond anything you've ever thought about. Like every morning you wake up and probably immediately you think of the things that you want you can never have, the things you want to do you can never do. In the future, all that'll be gone, right?
Yeah.
That FOMO won't exist. You'll be able to have multiple intersecting lives and with enough intellect to keep track of them all, so you don't get like
Yeah, that would
mixed
come in
up,
handy.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so all assumptions about limits and things you will never be able to have, never be able to do, those just don't really exist in the future. Price of valuable things could conceivably come down to approximately zero. And if you think about the idea of machines getting smarter than we are, that's a resource that can be shared, right? You can have
Yeah.
a brain implant that's giving you some of those extra
Yeah.
smarts. And what do you need that for? I mean, it really, if you think about why do you need to be much smarter than you are now? The only reason you do need that is if you want to pack a lot more life experience into each hour, each day than you're currently having. That is something that you lack the current intellect for. Most other things that you want, you're already smart enough, right?
Yeah.
So it's this like possibility that in the future, when you meet a friend on the road and you swap stories, every story is positive. Every story is about success, multiple simultaneous successes that you've had in the same time, the same day, different parts of the world, stuff like that. So just a lot of exciting possibilities. And I think taking the course is a little bit unusual. So the semester before last, the students got coroplast cutouts of themselves. We've only done it once. We're probably not going to do it again, but it that has to do with this idea of multiple instances of self. And if you watch current music videos, many of them have episodes of that, where the protagonist, the main character, whoever it is, breaks into multiple instances and does something as 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 instances, and then comes back together. So what has replaced getting the cardboard cutouts? Like if you come into my office now or in the height of the pandemic where everybody was worried about human contact, there were like 17 personages in my office, but most of them were these coroplast cutouts that you can't catch COVID from. So in April and May of this year, 2021, I discovered something about myself, which you're now probably beginning to suspect, which there's something neuroatypical about me, but in a positive way. So the students suggested that we should do testing to see what that is. So there's a standard personality test for normal individuals, NEO-PI revised. And so I took that test, and I was planning to hide forever the results. I was sure that whatever my personality was so strange and weird that I didn't want anyone to know. But then it turns out that I'm a poster child for like high openness to experience, and low neuroticism. So, a lot of people spend a lot of time worrying about stuff that you don't need to worry about. I apparently don't do that. And I didn't know either of those things about myself. So suddenly I have this important self-knowledge. So the students got very excited about this, and 7 of them have taken the same test, and we may do more of that. So you can say, well, doesn't that cost a lot of money? Well, what I can tell you is the cost of the test and the cost of a coroplast cutout is just about the same. So 2 terms ago, the students got coroplast cutouts, and last term, the students got personality tests. So anyway, there are lots of surprising things about the course, and I think that's not going to change. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of additional background you may not have known. So did you already suspect some of this stuff, or are these things beyond what you
Yeah,
knew about the course?
I was kind of looking at the like old syllabi.
Right?
So I kind of expected this. I'm very excited about it. It's a lot. It's even
Okay.
more than I imagined a lot, but it's even more than that. But that makes me excited because even when you're talking about, the things that you just said,
Yeah.
I was like, the whole thing was just so interesting.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, Good. I just didn't want you to think that this is just a sort of regular course, just like all the
Yeah,
other
no.
courses. But for some students, it is. So for some students, they just take the course with the same approach as any other course, and then they're on to other things. But for some students, it is life-changing, and they sort of fall in love with the course and they keep helping us with the course. Some students have continued in association with the course for 3, 4, 5 years. So uh, that's also cool. And either one of those is fine. Um, we've also had the following experience, which seems really surprising when you first hear about it. Some of the best presentations in the course get taken down because those are such high performing students on such a steep trajectory of self improvement that they ultimately think that this excellent, fantastic presentation that they gave was nowhere near as good as what they can do now. So they don't want it up there so people can see it. Yeah, so that's something else that happens. Okay, so even though I've confessed all these things to you about the course, you still want to take it, is that right?
Put me in.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So just to tell you some more about it, it's a graduate course taken mostly by undergraduates. And so it's graded like a graduate course, which means if everybody does well, they can all get high grades. You don't need any sort of curving of the grades. And sometimes on the first day of class, because all the undergraduates have to be interviewed, like you're being interviewed now, and the graduate students can just sign up for it and show up.
Hmm.
Sometimes what happens on the first day is this confrontation between these charismatic, outgoing undergraduate students and these sort of generic graduate students. And the graduate students look at the eager, shiny faces of the undergraduates, think I can never compete with that, and they never come back. But on the other hand, sometimes, of course, because of life experience, they're actually more interesting than the undergraduate
Yeah.
students. So anyway, that's also an interesting phenomenon in the course sometimes. So yeah, and so you may wonder, where does the conflict in the course come? That's sort of interesting. Very few students are dissatisfied with their grades, but the ones that are dissatisfied with their grades tend to be students who got A and their friends got A pluses, and they're really upset. But usually, I mean, the facts are very clear that they just didn't do as well as the A plus students. Yeah. So there's more conflict at that sort of gradient than in any other. And there's a kind of student that I never really understood much about before I started running this course. There are students who are here at the U of A for cool experiences. They've heard that's what you get in, you know, undergraduate
Yeah.
education, and that's what they're looking for. And so they may not be interested in getting A's. B's are just fine. B's are a perfectly respectable grade. So that kind of student, they may get the lowest grade in the class, which may be like a B or a B plus. So I'm holding my breath thinking they're going to be really upset. But it turns out that's what they always get. They're happy with that.
Well, I
And
mean, as long
they
as
may
they're
be
happy.
so enthusiastic about the experience of the course that they want to come back and TA in the course and help us with the course, even though they got the lowest grade. So that has also happened. And yeah, so it's a really surprising course in many ways that causes you to kind of rethink what life is all about, but I think in a positive way.
Yeah.
So if you still want to take it, I will tell Cheryl Titus that. She is the person who can physically add you to the course roster. I also already have your student number, and so we will make that happen. I can't guarantee it'll happen, tomorrow, but within the next few
Yeah.
days, I think you'll be added for fall 2021. And you might say, but my day is going to be so empty until the course starts. Well, you can do something about that or not, but there are lots of other things associated with the course. You may know that on my YouTube channel, there are over 1,500 videos. You can watch a lot of previous stuff from the course. And we have a musical and poetic extension of the course. So it's called The Future and all that jazz. You take unpopular but important subjects in science and put them in poetry and music and entertain people. And they accidentally learn things that maybe they'd never sit still for a lecture on. That's Future and all that jazz. Yeah, and lots of other things like that. So you can sort of follow my YouTube channels, see what I'm up to, and start getting input before September. But also, you don't have to.
Yeah.
That either way is fine. I used to
Uh,
have a reading list, but then I realized nobody actually used the reading list. So anyway, we don't really
YouTube's
have a
easier to get behind than a reading list.
right. We don't have a reading list anymore. So maybe this can be a good final graphic. I don't think this world will really exist where without a spacesuit or anything you can ride asteroids, but I don't know. Who knows?
The
I
Little
guess
Prince style reality.
yes, yes, that's right. But it looks like he's having fun anyway. So thank you for joining me for this, and we will add you to the course
All right.
roster, and I'll see you in September 2021, if not before.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye now.